Hi, Philip Hoffman from Tops Pro. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the more common mistakes I see when people are using the Tops Pro, and just share some tips on how to use it a bit more effectively. One of the first ones, the first one to talk about is when I see people working on the Tops Pro on court and they're facing it sideways. Now, it's much more effective if the work you're doing on the Tops Pro relates to the shot you're thinking about, and it's in that context, because that builds a much stronger learning environment. So let's say you're working on an approach shot, move it into the court like that, then you can work on your technique, play the shot, skip through. If you're working on a short angle cross-court forehand, move it across, I'm not out of camera, but move it across to the side of the court. If you're working on retrieving balls behind you, go to the back of the baseline, or behind the baseline, lobs, all the the various shots you work on. Go to try to work on it on the right place on the court where you'll be playing that shot, so you can get used to the kind of pace you hit with, the amount of spin you hit with, and it just gives you a much better way of learning the stroke. The second common thing I see is people getting much too close to the Tops Pro. I'll see people that are really close to it like this, right? The elbows are almost attached to their body like that, and that's just way too close to have a proper swing and hit the ball with freedom. So what you want to do, an easy way to do that, or correct that, is put the Tops Pro on a line, and then stand on the opposite side of the line, right? So that immediately creates some space. Another way is to get that sense of space is to now break in the law I just talked to you about it, pointing sideways. Put the ball in the middle of the racket, and then make sure your arms stretched out. It doesn't necessarily have to be straight like Nadal or Federer, but just loosely and comfortably bent like that. That's a decent sort of about a meter's distance from the ball, right? So that's something to definitely try to check before you start practicing. The other thing that is quite common is that people, instead of playing with an angle, you can see that angle between my arm and the racket, they'll play with a straight arm like that. It's kind of connected to the previous points I made. If they're like that, they are going to end up probably hitting this side of the Tops Pro with the racket tip. And what you really want to do is try to keep the racket equally spaced from the screen, whether it's the tip of the racket or the throat of the racket, right? Now tennis, this sort of comes from, well, we can imagine what might have happened in the past, is people, they used to play tennis with a European chopper grip holding on top like that, and they used to play the shots next to them, right? You play your forehand there and you play your backhand here. Now everything's played out way more out in front. You can see space between people's chest and where they make contact, right? And that's the kind of thing that you're trying to set up on the Tops Pro. You don't want this to be a straight line down your arm, down the racket. You want it to be this sort of laid back position on your wrist. So that's another thing to check. And the fourth thing is what I call scooping. There's a temptation, people will tell you to swing low to high, and that's important. But there's a temptation, because the ball protrudes from the Tops Pro, is to try to get underneath it like that. If you swing like that, the first thing you'll notice is the ball doesn't spin, so you're not putting topspin on it. And secondly, you'll hear that clunking noise of your racket hitting the Tops Pro. So just double check that you're not coming underneath with your strings pointing up like that, because then essentially you're swinging low to high, but you're swinging the racket face perpendicular to where the ball's traveling. So you really want a bit of an angle on that. So the best position to have it in is vertical. Have your strings vertical, because that gives you a decent combination of power and spin. If you get too closed and you end up swinging just like that, your shot will have spin, but it'll have absolutely no power. So it's important you swing into the Tops Pro and keep the racket vertical. And then the last thing to mention is just making your practice a bit more deliberate. Often you'll see players on court, and they or at home, wherever they're practicing, and they're swinging and they're hitting shot after shot after shot. I know the temptation is to try to keep the ball spinning for as long as possible, but that's really locking in terrible muscle memory. It's a bit like a guy on a driving range just smacking golf ball after golf ball after golf ball. You want to think about the stuff you're working on, and you want to complete the full shot. So you maybe it's just your forehand stroke and racket. You take the racket back, you swing through, you finish. Look towards your target. So complete that experience. You've got to try to make it as realistic and as close to match play or gameplay as you can. So don't rush through each shot. You want to experience each shot fully. Let the learning take place, and that's, you got a much better chance of reinforcing it, because that's when the brain plays the shot backwards. Actually, in the split second after you've played the shot, that's your brain is playing the same shot in your mind backwards, and it's that process that helps you lock in the muscle memory. So doing this isn't going to help. The other thing, which is sometimes quite useful, is you might have a cone somewhere. And in fact, this combines one of the earlier points about spacing. If you stand well away from the top, then you got to run in, set yourself, and then play the shot. That really helps you work on both the complete shot and also creating the right sort of spacing between you and the ball. Because each time you come in, you've got to make that correct judgment. Now I know some of you will only be needing help with a couple of these, but I just thought it'd be good to put all of them in one video, because those are the 5 most common things I see, and hopefully those little tips will help you get more out of your topspin pro.